Good evening, you're watching AWANI Tonight with me, Saraya Mia. We begin with updates in the Gaza Strip. Civilians continue to pay heavy price as Israeli bombing continues. The death toll now soars past 8,300. Benjamin Netanyahu has ruled out a ceasefire in Gaza, vowing there will be no ceasefire until the battle is won. In a televised speech, the Israeli Prime Minister said a ceasefire would amount to surrendering to Hamas. The U.S. has also rejected global calls for a ceasefire, arguing it is not the right answer right now. Meanwhile, the United Nations warned that not enough aid was coming in to meet unprecedented humanitarian needs in Gaza. The head of the UN Relief Agency for Palestine refugees also warned that the level of destruction across Gaza is unprecedented. Nearly 3,200 children have been killed in Gaza in 3 weeks. On the local front, Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim revealed that Malaysia has received 3 notices from the United States Embassy over its stance in the Palestine-Israel conflict. He stressed that though Malaysia may be faced with reprimands or warnings, it will not succumb to any form of intimidation on the matter.
Duta Besar kita ke Washington telah dipanggil oleh Jabatan Negara Amerika Syarikat yang mempersoalkan keputusan kita terhadap permasalahan Arab Israel, khususnya keganasan Israel terhadap Gaza. Dan Duta Besar kita tegas menyatakan pendirian kita. Oleh kerana keengganan kita untuk membantah tindakan Hamas dan menganggap Hamas sebagai pengganas atau teroris, maka saya juga mendapat maklumat dan melalui Kementerian Luar Negeri telah menerima demarche. Demarche ini menjadi tata tindak dari Kedutaan Amerika Syarikat 2 kali. Kali pertama 13 Oktober dan kali kedua 30 Oktober.
A démarche is typically issued by a government to convey its official position or request to another government. Separately, Anwar said Malaysia will decide whether or not to boycott the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation APEC Economic Leaders Week in San Francisco in December based on the decision of its regional partners.
The Malaysian Armed Forces is ready to be deployed as peacekeepers in Palestine if there is a mandate to do so. Defence Minister Datuk Seri Muhammad Hassan said his ministry is closely monitoring the developments in Palestine, with troops from the Malaysian battalion stationed in Lebanon on high alert.
Kami di Kementerian Pertahanan atau Angkatan Tentera, you just decide dengan izin. Buat keputusan. We will be there. Ya? Kita akan ke sana jika ada keputusan, jika ada mandat dan jika ada yang membolehkan kita menghantar tentera pengaman kita dengan segera, bahkan kita dah ada pun di Lebanon. Ya?
Hassan said the armed forces are also prepared to assist in evacuation of Malaysian citizens in the affected areas. At present, Hassan said the armed forces are still actively engaged in 5 international missions under the United Nations, including 1 peacekeeping mission in Lebanon since 2007.
In other news, there is no need to hike the overnight policy rate OPR for now, as the country's present situation does not require it. According to Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim, OPR hikes would negatively affect small businesses and should only be carried out when the national economy is in decline.
Nak naik OPR itu, apa alasannya? Kerana inflasi. Inflasi kita turun. Kerana pengangguran kita turun. Kerana tidak dapat tarik pelaburan meningkat. Jadi sebab itu dan apakah kesannya? Kesannya mungkin kepada peniaga-peniaga kecil. Jadi kita hanya naik bila keadaan ekonomi menuntut sedemikian.
Anwar, who is also Finance Minister, added that raising the OPR is not the only solution to address the depreciation of the ringgit. He said in response to the US Federal Reserve higher interest rates, The government adopts de-dollarization as a strategy to strengthen the ringgit. In May, Bank Negara raised the OPR by 25 basis points to 3%. The central bank is set to have its last Monetary Policy Committee meeting for 2023 on Thursday.
As of September 30th, the total number of foreign workers in Malaysia stands at 2.7 million. Human Resources Minister V. Sivakumar says this includes the 152,000 foreign workers expected to arrive in the country soon.
Penggunaan pekerja asing adalah bagi memenuhi keperluan tenaga kerja bagi sektor-sektor tertentu yang sukar diisi oleh tenaga buruh tempatan. Berikutan itu, kerajaan giat merangka dan melaksanakan pelbagai inisiatif merentasi kementerian dan agensi bagi menggalakkan tenaga kerja tempatan menceburi pekerjaan dalam sektor yang didominasi pekerja asing.
Sivakumar said the government also aimed to open up more job opportunities for ex-convicts to replace foreign workers in Malaysia. Ex-prisoners, he said, especially those who served time for minor offences, could still be productive at work. He added that his ministry was collaborating with the Home Ministry to provide trainings under the Social Security Organisation, SOCSO.
Sarawak is ramping up efforts to eradicate rabies in the state by 2025. Food Industry, Commodity and Regional Development Minister, Datuk Seri Dr. Stephen Rundi, says the state will work on vaccinating more dogs against the disease in urban and semi-urban areas.
To date, the Immune Belt Enforcement Team has vaccinated 89% of dogs in areas along the border, compared to the rate of about 60% in urban and semi-urban areas. Sarawak aims to reach 70% of the dog population statewide and attain herd immunity against the disease. The state has recorded 65 deaths from 72 human rabies cases since the outbreak began in 2017.
We'll be back with more after the break. Stay tuned.
Aku rasa kau bukan seorang je yang dia kacau kat uni ni.
You open-minded kan? Saya nak awak rakam video untuk saya. Saya janji saya takkan save.
Should I do further?
Must be something wrong somewhere kan?
Tak malu punya jantan.
Suka hati aku lah, Gobal.
Riot Rebel with a Cause. Stream episod baharu setiap Jumaat on demand dan Astro Premier.
Apa jua yang berlaku di sekeliling kita, pastinya ada punca dan kesan masing-masing. Faktor harga ekonomi, pengaruh politik dalam atau luar negara memberikan impak kepada kehidupan harian kita. Di Niaga Awani kami memberikan gambaran jelas melalui analisis mendalam, merentas pelbagai segmen dan latar belakang. Kami akan bantu anda untuk faham segalanya. Bisnes, ekonomi, pasaran, Niaga Awani, 9 pagi Isnin hingga Jumaat, hanya di Astro Awani.
Welcome back. Pakistan has ordered 1.7 million Afghans it says are living undocumented in the country to leave by November 1st or face deportation. A series of holding centers are being established across the country in preparation for the deadline on Wednesday in what rights groups say is an unprecedented crackdown.
Pakistan is home to more than 4 million Afghan refugees, the largest group of migrants. Many arrived after the Taliban recaptured Afghanistan in 2021, but a large number have been present since the Soviet invasion in 1979. But relations between the two neighbors have deteriorated since the Taliban took power. Pakistan said the deportations are to protect the welfare and security of the country, where anti-Afghan sentiment has grown amid continuing economic hardship. Human rights groups say the Pakistani government is using threats, abuse and detention to force Afghan asylum seekers to leave the country. Fleeing Afghans could also face human rights abuses back in the country under Taliban rule.
Meanwhile, Indonesian counter-terrorism police have arrested 59 people from groups linked to the Al-Qaeda and Islamic State over alleged plots to target the 2024 presidential election. The suspects were arrested earlier in October. Police also seized weapons, propaganda material, and bomb-making chemicals.
According to a spokesman for Indonesia's anti-terrorism unit, 40 of the suspects were from the IS-linked Jamaah Ansharut Daulah group. They were allegedly planning to carry out attacks on security forces during the elections in February next year. Meanwhile, another 19 suspects were linked to Jamaah Islamiyah, which has ties to Al-Qaeda. The network was behind the 2002 Bali bombings of a nightclub and bar that killed 202 people. The attacks, the deadliest in Indonesian history, subsequently led to a crackdown on militancy in the country.
Amid the complex and ever-evolving landscape of global security challenges, collaborative strengthening of security partnerships between nations is of utmost importance to build peace and stability. Cambodian Prime Minister Manet speaks about his experience as the commander of the Royal Cambodian Army in shaping his views on international cooperation in peacekeeping.
The training in the military, also my previous job in terms of as an army chief before I assumed my position as premiership, give me a clear view of a strength, a need to strengthen security cooperations between countries, because we are tackling cross-border issues, cross-border criminal activity, cross-border threat, such as from even non-traditional threats such as humanitarian disasters and terrorism, which can affect all of us.
Hun Manet assumed office as Cambodian Prime Minister for a 5-year term in August 2023, succeeding his father Hun Sen, who retired from the position after serving for over 38 years.
On to other news. A New Zealand tour company which managed White Island, the site of a 2019 volcano disaster, has been found guilty of breaching health and safety laws. The case is the largest action of its kind brought by New Zealand's regulator, WorkSafe New Zealand. The firm is facing a fine of up to $928,000.
The December 2019 eruption on White Island killed 22 people and injured another 25, with many suffering extensive burns. A district court in Auckland found Wakari Management Limited guilty on one charge, saying it had failed to do a risk assessment despite being aware of an eruption 3 years earlier. Meanwhile, a second charge of ensuring the safety of those working on the island was dismissed. The 3-month trial has already seen 6 parties plead guilty, while 6 more had their charges dismissed. Sentences will be passed in February next year.
Funding allocations remain a challenge in pushing for a more holistic urban development. However, according to UN Habitat Executive Director Datuk Sri Maimunah Muhammad Sharif, the main hurdle to sustainable urbanization is a less efficient allocation disbursement mechanism.
Therefore, Maimunah urged for better and targeted policies by governments in order to allocate the resources to those who need them.
Banyak pemimpin-pemimpin negara menyatakan tentang masalah dana. Banyak juga local government menyatakan masalah dana. Dan ada juga pendapat bukan masalah dana.
Bukan tak ada duit.
Bukan tak ada duit. Dana cukup. Tetapi bagaimana dana tersebut diagihkan hingga ke orang yang patut mendapat bantuan, dapat bantuan yang sebenarnya. Inilah pentingnya satu administratif ataupun pentadbiran yang telus. Yang ini yang saya masukkan selalu, saya nyatakan tentang leadership, governance dan capacity.
She said this during the interview by Astro AWANI in Üsküdar, Istanbul, who hosted the World Cities Day celebrations held on 31st October each year. The theme, Financing a Sustainable Urban Future for All, is highlighted in the celebrations this year to assess the transformation of investments in city planning, as well as a more comprehensive allocation of funds. The full interview with Maimunah is now available on all Astro AWANI platforms under the Agenda AWANI program.
That's all we have for you on AWANI tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Saraya Mia. We'll see you again soon, and good night.